Welcome to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. I'm your host, Dave Fearon. I like to record these introductions right after finishing the recording of a conversation with someone for the Practice Podcast. In this case, Estafania Maya, M-A-Y-A, that's my main accent, Maya, who is just, here I am trying to find the right words. Intelligence with feet. She's just really got it together. She figures things out. She's an analyst, but a lot more than that. In her young years, very early in her corporate career, having graduated from my school, Central Connecticut State University, and having the Fearon-Duran Scholarship, acknowledging her potential for excellence. And she sure is realizing that on a day-to-day basis in these still crazy pandemic times, just trying to keep it all going, keep it all together. I just so much admire the young people with whom I've had these conversations in the last few episodes. And now I will roll together my lessons in this conversation with Estafania and continue probing the nature of practice. So here is Market Analyst Estanfania Maya. Well, folks, there is still a Fearon-Duran Scholarship at Central Connecticut State University. I say it's still there because it was quite well endowed by my friend Joe DeFeo, who was the CEO of Duran at that time. And we had a number of students each year, just one each year, who we chose. And we chose Estafania Maya. Now we're talking ancient history, Estafania, as our scholar. And it was a great choice. In fact, I think we've gave you one the second year. And during that time, as I have tried to do with those, in quotes, kids, we'd have mentor discussions. Sometimes she'd mentor me and I would mentor her. But I watched her progress through the maze of decisions that very conscientious young people make to be sure that they arrive in their early years of employment doing something close to what they love in a place that loves that they love what they're doing. So is that basically you, Estafania? Have you arrived so far in doing something that you love?
Yeah, I definitely think, living in the quote unquote real world, it's a balancing act because it's not always 100% going to be something you love. At the end, it's going to be like part work, but I'm very fortunate that it doesn't always feel like work. I do enjoy a lot of what I do and I enjoy my team, and it's something that I do want to continue to pursue.
It's marketing.
It's analytics. So
it's more analytics than right now it's in the marketing domain. It could be analytics in other areas too then.
Yeah, I guess you can say that.
I'm just trying to classify you. This isn't as awful. Are you a market person or are you an analyst? Or you're a marketing analyst? You're an analyst to love. Because all when you were working at the prior company, when you were paying your way through school, you did a tremendous amount of crunching of numbers that are, to me, unimaginably complex, because you were in an aerospace company at that time, or a corporate level of a company that had a lot of different accounts, a lot of international accounts. And I was thinking, how do you even begin to open up a page and look at it? So you had that gift for seeing patterns in numbers. So is that something that's serving you well now, Estafania?
Yeah, I would 100% say so. There's this one insurance product that I'm working with, and it is a very regulated product. So we are limited in the things that we can do to, push profitability and growth. So, my interest in seeing what the numbers are telling us is definitely helping me a lot with figuring out, what's the underlying story here. Because you can report, this metric shows this number, this other metric shows this number, but that's meaningless unless you can put it all together and, tell us the so what part of the story.
Yeah. And that's the fun part for you?
Yeah, that's one of the fun parts for me. I would say that that's definitely the hardest part, surprisingly, but I really like the numbers portion of it.
The conversations around that, you're in a team. So when you're looking at the people with whom you interact on a daily basis, how does that going for you now? You were very much involved in teams during school and at your internships prior to coming over to where you are now. But you're also a very strong solo act, I think, from what I recall. You have a team, you can collaborate, but you can also work independently. How's that working now? Which part do you love the most? My team moments or my me moments?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that in the beginning part of anyone's career, it's very important to work a lot on being able to work with a team, because you're new. And while you have, X, Y, and Z strengths, you need someone to help you hone it in for whatever role it is and continue to develop those strengths and develop any other competencies that you have that may not right now be a strength. So I have really enjoyed the team-oriented portion of that because I see a lot of growth in myself. And the team-oriented portion of it isn't necessarily, a group project. Sometimes there's a project that's like right now we have a project that's getting broken out into pieces and we're all looking at very different perspective, very different data sets, but we're coming together to figure out what is the story here.
That sounds like fun. Almost like one of those games that kids are playing Mastercraft or something. We're all coming together from different angles. But that's very cool. Yeah.
And we have weekly touch points. And, at one point I was like disappointed because, I'm seeing the work that others are doing. And I think that that's super interesting. And they're able to speak a lot to their data. And I'm not able to speak as much to it because it's not giving me as much. I'm not working with a huge data set. I'm working with a list and like 3 other numbers. So there's not a lot you can pull from that. There are a lot of visuals that I'm able to make, which is good. But my boss was able to inform me that, yes, I understand where you're coming from, but your story is validating what everyone else is doing. So if you're telling us this is what's happening, then their numbers should be able to reflect that. And then we have like a story that we can, roll up to leadership that says, this is what we're seeing and we're able to see it in this, and this. So,
wow. You're carrying more load than you thought on that particular venture. That you're like, oh, I've only got this, and they've got all that, and then you realize, no, you're sort of the the jury on the whole process. It tries to see the whole picture and decide, whether it's ready to move up to the next level.
Yeah, in a way, it's definitely interesting. And, being able to learn about how others analyze data is also super valuable because you come in with one way of doing things, but that's not the only way. So that's on the group front. On the individual front, I was given a stretch project and I was very happy with how, the ball started rolling and it went off to a really great start. Data visualization is it's something that I'm realizing I'm good at and I really like. So there are a lot of ways that you can present data. And there was one way that my manager was telling me to do it, and I came up with another way, and he enjoyed the way that I came up with more. So I'm enjoying all of the different demands that this job requires, the group portion and the individual portion. And in the end, I think everything does roll up to a group portion because, you know, I'm not a CEO.
Not yet.
This isn't a one-man show. Like, this is definitely something where I have to report to other people, and, you know, they give me feedback. We go back to the project, make any modifications, and, you know, we keep going. And now this is a project that has legs. So we've got the vice president involved, and we're trying to continue figuring out how far we can expand this project before we give it to like top leadership. And who knows where it's going to go from there. Probably other areas of the business or other business partners, but it's just a very interesting way to work.
It's consequential, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think probably the prime difference between the years that you were at school and producing good work and having it graded is that was the end, other than the growth you may have experienced in doing the various graded activities. But there was hardly any. You talked about the real world. There are really no real world consequences for that use of your whole self, not just your brain, which is considerable, but your whole self. And because that's what you're putting into the team, and that's what you're investing in being in a company. But the consequences of what you just described as an example of what you do rolls up in various, and it happens in every organization, whether it's tiny or large, that eventually someone has to have information with a story already thought through so that he or she can then make highly consequential decisions, investment decisions, or reallocation of resources, and, you know, and on. And frankly, that's business. I mean, what you are is a businesswoman, providing an aspect of business that ultimately the whole business needs. So are you making seven figures yet?
Not yet. Hopefully soon, though.
Yeah, but but here's the other thing, the personal level, you're making a living. I mean, and when you were going through school, you had my scholarship or our scholarship, and you had as many things cobbled together, and you were working in awfully hard jobs, well over. They put you in jobs that they should have had senior people doing, but you were there and you were willing to do it. But you didn't have a living, a job with benefits and a future. Now you do. How does that feel?
No, it feels great to be able to, financially take care of yourself. It's definitely, one less stress, which, it always makes me think about, like, how do people that, aren't at this financial level, like, how are they managing so well, and it's just so interesting because, we all have different priorities there that we want to take care of. Not everyone's financial needs are the same as the person next to them. Or rather, my financial needs are not the same as my friend from college who studied political science, and now she's going to get her master's degree in social work. There are different things that we all need to keep going forward. And, thank God for that, because then we wouldn't have, the different people that we need in order for society to function.
That's right. But she'll be deferring in many ways then, having a steady income until she finally gets certified in social work. And she's going to be amazing. But thank God for that. We should, more than ever, with what we've gone through in the whole mental health of the country is in tatters. I think people who have that motive are they're going to be extremely well thought of, I believe, when they finally get there. So we talked a little bit now. One thing that we did when you were at school is we did a lot of structuring of your learning. We told you the theory sets when you stayed on and did an extra semester or two in mathematics. So they were telling you about the various theorems in math. But now you're no one's doing the job of structuring your learning for you. I know there's a bit of that, but I mean, overall, you're on your own as a learner. Mm-hmm. How are you doing at that?
It has been good because my program was a part of it was organized by someone that was trained to be a teacher. So I think she thought of a really good way of organizing all of the material. There were trainings that were recorded. There was a lot of PowerPoints and speaker series. So I felt like it was a very natural transition.
That was that first year that you were with the product program.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And then from there, it became a little bit more challenging because I just came to learn about myself that I do very well in a structured environment. And I'm sure, I believe I told you this too, like.
Just had a little glitch in sound, folks, but this is an interesting point for our overall concern about the nature of practice, whether someone is structuring the learning system so that it is fairly easy for you to follow someone else's lead versus having to structure your own learning on a day-to-day basis. And you were just saying that when you first came into the stage you're in now, there was a very structured program with the intention for you to get, quick study and understand the whole business. Now you're in a different mode. And how are you doing at that?
Yeah, so it's been good, but it could be better. There are a lot of things that I'm learning along the way, a lot of things that I now need to start putting into practice, which, for some might sound, obvious or unnecessary, but for me, it's totally necessary because I do so much better in a structured environment. So I also have more frequent one-on-ones with my manager now to make sure that, things are progressing the way it should. And that, the way that I'm thinking about my priorities is the same as management. So there are a lot of additional steps that I have to take that maybe someone else doesn't have to take, but that's just simply because I thrive more in a very structured environment.
Do you have the resources around you need, let's say when you're noodling that stretch project? Do you have access to the resources you need fairly much at hand? I don't mean a book on the shelf, but people, access to databases and other things that you need to do the job so you can continue to learn?
I think so. I have, my manager's very willing to help me. I have other people from different rotational programs that are just extremely bright. And they have always been someone that I could just tap on the shoulder and say, this is the way that I'm interpreting these numbers. Would you interpret it differently? Or they would, be able to point me to a different data source that would be better because, different tools have different standards of quality, but, I feel very well supported.
Well, that's very important because you have decided, I'm assuming that you're not going to stop growing. You want to keep growing because you're still younger than my shoes and you have a very bright future, Estafania. Let me add a little bit of your history for the listeners. When I read your application, this is 5 or 6 years ago, must have at least that long ago because I was still working at Central at the time. You had said that your family had come from Colombia. Was it the lottery system that got you here?
Oh, no. Colombia at the time was not doing well politically, socioeconomic wise also. So we unfortunately had to come here due to, safety risks in Colombia.
Yeah. So you were about 8 or 9 years old, as I recall?
No, I was just turning 2.
And your sister hadn't been born. And so you would have been, if things had been better in Colombia, you and I never would have met.
Yeah.
And as much as we want things to be better in South America for everyone, the fact that your family took the really difficult step of coming here and then getting you into our way of life. So that's quite an important transition that you made there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I admire my parents so much for that because, some people think that, they just moved, but there's so much more to it than that. There's a cultural shift. There's lack of support system. Finances are very challenging for an immigrant. My mom had to start from zero. She's a very educated woman. She had a bachelor's in accounting, master's in administration with a concentration in finance. And then she had a very amazing position, especially for someone at her age. And she had to just give all of that up to provide a better future for me. And she it was a very tough decision for her. And I know that, she's still frustrated with that decision to this day because she had to take a massive step down. And because of, the internal social dynamics of this country that we're still working on, she hasn't been able to progress the way that she deserves, the way that she has worked to do.
That story, which is very painful for you to speak and for me to hear, is also a huge story for so many people who came here in various circumstances. And we'd want a country that would at least look at a credential from another country and say, yeah, that accounting is accounting, maybe the language, but there are still a lot of blocks, unfortunate blocks that we have. But on the other hand, here you are. Now your mom must be extraordinarily proud of you. And I sure am, having had a small part in your trajectory. So let's finish the conversation with any question you might have of your old Doc Fearon.
Yeah, let's see. I want to be very thoughtful about this because I have a few that we can continue to talk about at another time. But I guess, how do you manage as, someone new in their career, the different team dynamics? Because my team operates one way and all of the other teams operate another way. And that difference does not translate to a difference in that difference does not mean that there's a leveled field of expectations.
Right. And that's why teams are going to be understudy for the rest of time because we need them. Yeah. We love them, but we really don't understand why there isn't some kind of theoretical foundation where we could say, no matter what team you're in, these are the things that are of a principal level that you can count on are going to happen. It's because we are humans, and when we mix our little selves into the concoction of other people who depend on each other now, interdependently need to get a job done, each person brings unique elements. So it's just a lot. If you look at a huge company with 35, 40,000 employees, it's unimaginably complex. But when it's concentrated down to your team experiences that you've been having there, Estafania, and you did in your internships before you graduated, it's a different mix of people every time.
Yeah.
And it's only evident when you're really down to a conversational level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, either because you're not always sitting now without physical locations. You were always talking on Zoom and something, but it really breaks down to 5 people, 3 of whom have ease in conversation with each other. The inner flow is there. The relationships are constantly strengthening. One of the 5, the other 2 are on the margin about that and really have other fish to fry, as we say in Maine. So you never quite know if they're with it. And then the other one is deciding that they'd rather not be in the team at all. So if you look at the chemistry at that level, the advice I would give you and anyone else, including myself, is recognize, as you would traveling across a territory that's constantly changing, so that around every corner you go from a desert situation to a quicksand to a lovely plateau with the view is beautiful. And so it's you are moving forward, team to team to team. That's the point. So each team that either works well or doesn't work well in that moment, because the next moment it could work even better. In that moment is when you need to adjust yourself very quickly. Read the team, adjust yourself very quickly, and manage your conversations accordingly. Because the next time you go around the bend, it could be altogether different. Does that get close to your experience so far?
Yeah, definitely. I think that what you said definitely applies, but I guess from like a more macro level, you know, there are different teams and each one of the teams gets managed differently, gets placed with, you know, different tasks. They have their own separate hurdles that they need to go through. They're not comparable, really.
No.
And until you get to like that foundational level of what it is that we're doing. You know, so with all of those different things, you know, there's a look across at the top line of, are they meeting expectations? You know, and I think that that's a very interesting thing that I guess I'm not sure how, you know, that top management goes through that process, given all of those different things that differentiates all of the teams.
I know it's a great challenge, because if you go back to where we were earlier in our conversation, the whatever comes up through into the hierarchy and then they start acting on, they require it to have good, not just good quality, is as close to excellent quality as they can get from that output, from whatever department they require. And so the movement away from the old bureaucracies and the silos to more agile, more team-based work, you know, it can be a real scary thing for some of the folks who need certainty that much. And so the job for social scientists, which I used to be, is to come up with better explanations about what you just described so well, that the variegation of team performances and how you somewhat get enough of that orchestrated so you get more good than bad. Because again, of the human beings, we're not talking about assembling zeros and ones in artificial intelligence. We're talking about intelligent people who need each other, but also have other things going on in their heads and their lives. And concentration is not always the first thing that people offer, or mistakes get made, or politics start to happen, or someone falls in love with a team member. Who knows? It's wonderfully human, but scarily human at the same time.
100%.
So just keep your very good sense of yourself and your and your fascination with what we just described, you'll never be bored.
That's for sure.
Thank you. Estafania, what are you going by these days?
Oh, Steph is good.
Steph, I know, but I always love that. That's Estafania. I always love the elegance of that. So I will continue to call you Estafania. And I hope we can have a number of more get-togethers. It's been too long.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If you'd like to hear more, listen in on Spotify, Automatic, and Apple Podcasts, or go to inactionresearch.com/podcast-page. And if you'd like to learn more about social inaction and the nature of practice, head over to inactionresearch.com for more information. Thank you for supporting this show. We look forward to hearing from you soon.